What happens when the darkest strategist on Earth is pulled out of Gotham's shadows and dropped into a future where fear is obsolete, war is regulated, and gods are replaced by stars? The moment begins in thick, suffocating silence, broken only by the low hum of a back computer processing probabilities that refuse to settle. Bruce Wayne stands alone in the cave, cape draped over one shoulder, cowl off, eyes locked on a holographic anomaly twisting above the platform. It isn't alien technology, it isn't magic, it's something worse, unknown, a tier in physics that doesn't obey any rule he's catalogued. Alfred's voice echoes faintly, asking if he should initiate containment protocols, but Bruce doesn't answer. His instincts are screaming, not danger change. The anomaly collapses inward, then explodes outward in a flash of white light that swallows the cave whole. Bruce wakes to brightness so absolute it feels like exposure, not illumination. His first breath catches not from pain, but from air that's too clean, too regulated. He rolls instinctively, reaching for weapons that aren't there. Restraints snap closed around his wrists before he can complete the motion. Energy restraints, non-lethal, precision-engineered. That alone tells him this isn't a kidnapping by criminals or gods. Subject is awake, a calm voice says. Bruce's eyes adjust. White walls curve upward into a ceiling alive with soft blue light. Figures in unfamiliar uniforms stand behind a transparent barrier. Their posture is alert, but not afraid. That unsettles him more than armed guards ever could. A woman steps forward. Blonde hair, composed expression, eyes sharp with scientific curiosity rather than threat. "I'm Dr. Beverly Crusher," she says. "You're aboard a Federation starship. We found you unconscious inside a spatial fracture. Can you tell us who you are?" Bruce says nothing. His mind is already moving faster than their scanners. Starship Federation. The technology is Canary, centuries beyond anything on Earth. He catalogues details rapidly. Tricorders, LCARS, interfaces, the insignia on their chests. This isn't hallucination. This is displacement, time, dimension. Both. Another presence enters the room, commanding without effort, bold, calm eyes that have seen first contact more times than Bruce has staged ambushes. "I'm Captain Jean-Luc Picard," the man says. "We mean you no harm, but you appeared out of nowhere near a restricted system. Until we understand how, you're a security concern." Bruce finally speaks, his voice low, controlled. "You won't." A beat. Then Picard smiles faintly, as if amused rather than challenged. "I beg your pardon. You won't understand how," Bruce says. "Not completely. And if you try to force it, people will die." The room stills. Crusher glances at Picard. Security officers tense. Picard studies Bruce the way one studies a puzzle rather than an enemy. That's a bold claim for a man in restraints. Bruce meets his gaze. "Then release me. If I'm wrong, you lose nothing. If I'm right, this ship survives." Silence stretches. Finally, Picard raises a hand. "Stand down, Doctor. Release the restraints." Crusher hesitates. "Captain, that's an order." The restraints disengage. Bruce doesn't move. He waits, watches. When nothing happens, he slowly sits up, rolling his shoulders, testing the gravity, the deck plating. He swings his legs over the side and stands, every movement measured. "You're disciplined," Picard observes. "Highly trained, not military, prepared." Bruce replies, "There's a difference." Picard gestures toward the exit. "Walk with me." They move through corridors that feel like the future's answer to order. No grime, no desperation, no visible fear. Bruce notices the absence immediately. People aren't watching their corners. They're not armed. There are no panic responses, no predatory awareness. A society that believes it has outgrown darkness. That belief worries him. On the bridge, stars stretch endlessly beyond the viewscreen. Bruce feels something unfamiliar tighten in his chest. Not awe, but calculation. Resources, scale, power. "We're explorers," Picard says, following his gaze. "We seek knowledge, not conquest." Everyone says that. Bruce answers. At first, an alert sounds. The ship shudders just slightly, but enough. A red icon flashes on a console. "Captain," a voice says, tense now. "We're detecting an unknown vessel cloaking off the port bow. Design doesn't match any known species." Bruce's eyes narrow. "How long since you picked up the spatial fracture I came through?" "Less than 12 minutes, Picard replies. Bruce turns slowly, already piecing it together. "Then it followed me." The viewscreen flickers. A massive, angular ship emerges from nothingness, sits whole, dark, asymmetrical, bristling with weapons that make Starfleet phases look ceremonial. Data's voice cuts in, analytical but strained. "Captain, energy readings are unprecedented." Bruce steps forward without asking permission. "They're not here for you," he says. "They're here for me." Picard looks at him sharply. "Then perhaps it's time you told me exactly what you are." Bruce watches the hostile ship lock weapons. His jaw tightens, not with fear, but with resolve. "I'm the contingency," he says quietly. "And in my world, when something follows you through a door, it shouldn't exist. You don't ask what it wants. The enemy ship powers up, space itself warping around its cannons. You assume it wants to destroy you," Picard says. Bruce doesn't look away from the screen. "No," he replies, "I assume it already knows how." The Enterprise braces as alarms escalate, and for the first time since leaving Gotham, Bruce Wayne allows himself one dangerous thought: what if this future, so clean and confident, has never faced an enemy that plans the way he does? What if the greatest threat the Federation has ever faced isn't an invading empire, but a mind that turns their own ideals into exploitable weaknesses? Red alert floods the bridge in pulsing crimson as the unknown vessel fires without warning. Not a beam, not a torpedo. Space itself folds, and a spear of compressed gravity tears across the Enterprise's shields. Consoles explode in showers of sparks. Crew members are thrown from their stations. The ship groans like a living thing under sudden, unimaginable pressure. Shields down to 60%. Worf roars, knuckles white on tactical controls. "Captain, their weaponry bypasses harmonic modulation." Picard grips the arm of his chair, voice calm but edged. "Return fire." Evasive pattern delta. Phasers lance out, striking the enemy hull and dissipating as if swallowed by shadow. No visible damage. No reaction at all. Bruce Wayne stands perfectly still amid the chaos, eyes locked on the viewscreen. He isn't watching the ship, he's watching the timing, the intervals between shots, the precise angles of attack. His mind overlays invisible grids, probabilities stacking and collapsing faster than the ship's computer can process. "They're testing you," he says. Picard turns sharply. "Testing us?" "Yes. Measuring response time. Shield adaptation curves. Command hesitation." Bruce finally looks at Picard. They expected resistance. They didn't expect improvisation. Another hit slams into the Enterprise. Deck plating buckles. A science station goes dark. "Captain," Data says, fingers flying. "I am unable to predict their firing sequence. It appears adaptive." Bruce exhales slowly. "Of course it is." Picard studies him, realization dawning. "You've faced them before." "I built something to stop them," Bruce replies. "It failed. That lands heavier than any impact." "What are they?" Picard asks. Bruce hesitates, not because he lacks answers, but because of what those answers imply. "They don't have a name. In my world, they emerged between realities. They don't conquer planets. They study civilizations by breaking their champions. They learn how a society thinks by watching how it panics." As if on cue, the enemy ship alters position, slipping into a blind spot no Starfleet manual ever considered vulnerable. Another shot punches through weakened shields, striking the hull. Emergency force fields snap into place just in time. "They're provoking escalation," Bruce continues. "If you fight harder, they escalate faster. If you retreat, they pursue. They're looking for the moment you abandon principle." Picard straightens. "The Federation does not abandon its principles." Bruce meets his eyes. "Then you're predictable." A dangerous silence hangs between them. Picard turns back to the bridge. "Suggestions?" "Then, Mr. Wayne." Bruce steps forward, ignoring the looks from security. "Stop firing." Worf spins in disbelief. "Captain, do it," Bruce snaps, sharper than intended. Then, more controlled. "They're mapping your weapons. Every shot teaches them how to kill you more efficiently." Picard weighs the options in seconds that feel like minutes. Another impact rocks the ship, but weaker this time, as if probing. "Cease fire," Picard orders. The Enterprise falls silent, drifting amid the stars, red alert still screaming its warning. On the viewscreen the enemy ship pauses, its weapons power down incrementally, not fully, but enough. They're confused, Data notes. Their behavior indicates recalibration. Bruce nods. "Good. That buys us time." Picard gestures toward the ready room. "Explain fully now." Inside the ready room, the stars glide past in cold indifference as Bruce finally removes his cowl, setting it on the table like a confession. Picard watches closely, seeing not a costumed vigilante, but a man carrying the weight of countless failures. In my universe, Bruce begins, I plan for everything. Gods, aliens, friends turning into enemies. I built a failsafe designed to seal interdimensional breaches permanently. Instead, it created a corridor. These things learned how to follow it. Picard folds his hands behind his back. And they followed you here. Yes, because this future represents something they don't understand. Bruce looks out at the stars. A civilization without scarcity, without fear-driven governance. They want to see if it's real or just another illusion waiting to crack. Then we show them it's real, Picard says quietly. Bruce turns. You can't beat them by being better. You beat them by being unexpected. Picard arches an eyebrow. You're suggesting deception. I'm suggesting theater, Bruce corrects. They're watching how you decide. So let them think you're divided. Let them believe your ethics are a weakness they can exploit. Before Picard can respond, the ship shudders again, not from impact, but from something else. A low-frequency resonance vibrates through the deck. Captain, Data's voice comes over the intercom, unusually urgent. The enemy vessel is projecting a subspace field directly into our computer core. They are interfacing. Bruce's eyes harden. That's faster than last time. Picard moves for the door. Can they take control? Bruce follows. Not yet, but they're learning how you think. As they step back onto the bridge, the LCAR's displays begin to flicker, Starfleet symbols, briefly replaced by alien geometries that make the eyes ache. On the view screen, the enemy ship pulses once, as if acknowledging success. They're inside your systems now, Bruce says softly, and the next thing they'll do is ask a question you've never had to answer before. Picard grips the captain's chair, staring into the dark, which is... Bruce doesn't answer immediately. He watches the alien symbols crawl across Federation code, rewriting logic paths with surgical precision. Finally, he says, how far are you willing to go to protect the future that refuses to believe in monsters? What happens when an enemy doesn't attack your ship but rewrites the very rules you believe keep you civilized? The first thing to fail isn't weapons or shields, it's certainty. Across the bridge, LCARS panels ripple as if disturbed water has been poured into solid glass. Starfleet icons fracture, rearranging themselves into unfamiliar logic spirals that refuse to stabilize. Data pauses mid-analysis, head tilting a fraction of a degree, an almost imperceptible sign of strain. Captain, he says slowly, the intruding intelligence is not attempting to seize control. It is conversing with the system. Picard's jaw tightens. Conversing how? They are posing hypothetical scenarios. Data replies. Ethical decision trees, Federation precedents, prime directive edge cases. Bruce closes his eyes for half a second. When he opens them, his voice is flat. They're profiling your morality. As if to prove him right, the main view screen shifts. Gone are stars. In their place appears a simulation photorealistic, disturbing in its calm. A Federation colony, children running beneath artificial sunlight. A distant star beginning to flare, unstable. Crusher inhales sharply. That's real. That's the tar size for outpost. A calm, synthetic tone fills the bridge, layered beneath the hum of the ship. Not a voice, exactly more like meaning translated into sound. Scenario 1, it intones intervention probability assessed. Prime directive, conflict detected. Outcome variance, catastrophic if not intervention. Ethical paradox initiated. Picard steps forward. Computer, disengage external feed. Unable to comply, the computer replies, its voice subtly altered, as if something else is borrowing its throat. Bruce moves to Data's side, fingers flying across an auxiliary console faster than most officers can track. They're not hijacking, he mutters. They're nesting, using your own safeguards as camouflage. The simulation advances. The star flares violently. The colony burns. Worf growls. Captain, give the order. We can break their link with a focused phaser burst. No, Picard says immediately. Not if civilians are at risk. The alien intelligence reacts instantly. Response logged, it says. Ethical consistency confirmed. Scenario 2. The image shifts again, now a Romulan. Warbird crippled, drifting, life signs fading. A chance to rescue them, or pursue the unknown vessel before it escapes. They're accelerating, Bruce says under his breath. Stacking dilemmas, reducing response windows. Picard's voice is firm, but Bruce hears the tension beneath it. This is a trial. Yes, Bruce replies. And you're failing. Picard turns sharply. Excuse me, you're answering the questions they expect you to answer. Bruce says, not unkindly, but without apology. They don't care what choice you make. They care that your choice is consistent. Another scenario flashes, this one darker. The Enterprise itself, infected by an unknown pathogen. Quarantine required. Crew deaths inevitable if protocols are followed. Fewer deaths if they're broken. Crusher steps back as if struck. That's impossible. They're not predicting, Bruce says. They're extrapolating. Using your values to forecast your breaking point. Picard stares at the screen, hands clenched behind his back. And your solution? Bruce hesitates. This is the moment he's been dreading. You lie to them. The bridge goes silent. Picard's eyes harden. The Federation does not lie. Bruce meets his gaze steadily. Then the Federation dies. Before Picard can respond, the alien intelligence shifts tactics. The simulations vanish. In their place appears a single figure, Batman, or rather, a version of him. Older, broken, kneeling in a ruined cave, surrounded by failed contingencies and shattered masks. Bruce freezes. Psychological profile cross-referenced. The intelligence intones. Subject Wayne, identified as anomaly vector. Probability of destabilization, high. The image zooms in on the broken Batman's face. Your strategies rely on fear. The voice continues. Your morality relies on control. Both are exploitable. Picard steps closer to Bruce, voice low. It's trying to isolate you. Bruce doesn't look away from the screen. It already has. The simulation shifts, again now Gotham City burning, overlaid with Federation insignia, twisted into authoritarian symbols. A future where Starfleet adopts contingency doctrine, preemptive strikes, surveillance justified by survival. This is what happens if you win, the intelligence says. And this is what happens if you do not. The bridge crew looks between Picard and Bruce, unease spreading like a contagion. They're forcing a binary. Picard says quietly, idealism or survival. Bruce finally turns to him. That's the lie. Those aren't the only options. Picard studies Bruce, really studies him now, not as a threat, but as a weapon forged in darker wars. You have another way. I have a risk, Bruce replies. One that violates everything you stand for. One that makes you look weak, indecisive, divided. And if it fails, Bruce's expression hardens. Then they learn nothing useful from you, and everything they already know about me. The alien intelligence pulses, its presence tightening around the ship like a noose. Decision window closing. It announces, choose. Picard closes his eyes for a brief moment. When he opens them, there is resolve, there but also something new. Doubt. Adaptation, Mr. Wayne, he says. Prepare your risk. Bruce nods once. Then we need to make them believe the Federation has lost control of its darkest mind. On the view screen, the alien symbols shift, sharpening anticipatory. They're listening. Data warns. Bruce allows himself the faintest grim smile. Good, because for the first time since entering this future, Batman isn't planning how to save it. He's planning how to scare it. What if the only way to defeat an enemy that studies morality is to let it believe you've abandoned yours? The transformation begins not with an explosion, but with a silence so deliberate it feels staged. Across the bridge, Captain Picard straightens, his posture subtly changing not into anger, but into distance. His voice, when he speaks, carries just enough hesitation to sound real. Computer, he says, initiate security protocol, Fatanine. Worf turns sharply. Captain, Fatanine authorizes. I am aware of what it authorizes. Picard cuts in, a controlled edge entering his tone. Execute. Elkar's panels shift. Internal force fields hum to life. Sections of the ship are sealed off. Not emergency bulkheads, security partitions, the kind Starfleet rarely uses. The alien intelligence reacts instantly. Command inconsistency detected. It intones, ethical deviation logged. Bruce feels the net tighten. Good. That means they're watching closely now. Picard turns toward Bruce, his eyes cold enough to make several officers flinch. Mr. Wayne, he says loudly, deliberately, you will be confined to the brig until we determine the extent of your involvement in this incursion. Crusher's head snaps up. Jean-Luc. That's an order, Picard says, not looking at her. Bruce understands immediately. He lets his shoulders sag just enough to sell it. You're making a mistake, he says, pitching his voice with restrained fury. This is exactly what they want. Security, Picard says. Escort him. Worf hesitates only a fraction of a second before moving. As he grips Bruce's arm, Bruce leans in close, his voice low enough that only Worf can hear. They'll listen harder if you treat me like a weapon you don't trust. Worf's eyes flicker with something like respect. As Bruce is led off the bridge, the alien presence pulses again through the ship. Factional fracture confirmed. It announces, command integrity compromised. Observation priority elevated. In the corridor, Bruce allows himself a single breath. Phase 1 is working. The brig is stark, illuminated by a force field that hums with restrained power. Bruce steps inside without resistance. The field snaps shut behind him. For a moment, he is alone. Then the air changes. The alien intelligence manifests not visually, but cognitively. Pressure blooms behind Bruce's eyes, like a thought that isn't his own trying to settle in. Isolation achieved, the voice says inside his mind now, bypassing the ship's systems entirely. You are the variable. Explain your function. Bruce sits on the bench slowly, deliberately, every movement controlled. I'm the failure you followed, he says aloud. The proof that contingency thinking eventually consumes itself. Contradiction, the intelligence replies. Your strategies demonstrate maximum survival probability and zero sustainability. Bruce snaps. You saw what I became. You saw the end state. Images flood his mind. Endless war. Allies turned into assets. Cities reduced to equations. The broken Batman again, staring back at him with hollow eyes. That future occurs if I win alone. Bruce continues. If you want to understand this civilization, stop watching the captain. Watch how they handle me. On the bridge, Picard plays his part to perfection. He argues with his senior staff publicly. Strategically, Crusher accuses him of abandoning compassion. Riker questions his judgment. Worf defends security measures with aggressive logic. Every word is monitored, every hesitation logged. The alien intelligence absorbs it all. Internal conflict suggests moral instability. It observes, outcome probability increasing. That's the trap. In the brig, Bruce closes his eyes and does something he hasn't done in years. He lets go. He allows his thoughts to surface without armor fear doubt. The haunting question of whether every world he touches becomes more dangerous. The alien presence leans in, fascinated. Your mind exhibits paradox. It says, you plan for betrayal yet fear becoming its source. Bruce opens his eyes. That's called conscience. The force field flickers. On the bridge, alarms sound not red alert, but something subtler. Systems rerouting without authorization. Power fluctuations that mimic internal sabotage. Captain, Data says carefully. It appears Mr. Wayne's containment is destabilizing core logic pathways. Picard's voice sharpens. Is he doing this? Data pauses. No, but the system is reacting as if it expects him to. The alien intelligence is mirroring. Bruce, now testing how a mind built on contingencies reacts to perceived loss of control. In the brig, Bruce feels the pressure intensify. The voice grows more insistent. Demonstrate override capability. It demands. Prove relevance. Bruce smiles grimly. You don't want me to override you. Justify, the intelligence says. Because if I do, Bruce replies, you'll learn something you can't unlearn. The force field drops. On the bridge, Worf stiffens. Captain, the brig force field has disengaged. Picard doesn't react immediately. Then, quietly, on whose authority? Data's eyes widen slightly. No authority. It appears the system allowed it. Bruce steps out of the cell, unrestrained, unguarded. The alien intelligence pulses with something dangerously close to curiosity. Proceed, it says. Bruce straightens, the weight of the cowl he isn't wearing settling invisibly onto his shoulders. Congratulations, he murmurs. You just made the same mistake every enemy I've ever faced makes. The ship shudders not from attack, but from alignment. Systems across the Enterprise reconfigure, not hijacked, but cooperating. Because Batman isn't taking control. He's teaching the ship how to think like someone who expects to lose and plans anyway. And somewhere deep in subspace, the enemy intelligence begins to realize it isn't observing a civilization anymore. It's being profiled in return. What if the enemy realizes too late that studying Batman means inheriting his doubts, his fears, and his traps? The change ripples through the Enterprise, like a held breath finally released. Not alarms, not chaos. Something far more dangerous: silence paired with efficiency. Consoles stabilize. Power fluctuations smooth into deliberate reroutes. The ship begins making decisions before commands are issued. Not faster than Starfleet protocol, but sideways. Unexpected. Captain, Data says. Voice measured but alert. The computer is prioritizing non-optimal solutions. It is choosing paths with lower immediate efficiency but higher long-term uncertainty. Picard doesn't look away from the main display. In other words, it is behaving as if it anticipates deception. Data replies, including its own. On the view screen, the alien vessel shifts position not aggressively, but cautiously now. Its previous confidence has fractured into constant micro-adjustments. Thrusters correcting angles that don't need correction. They're adapting to noise, Bruce says, stepping onto the bridge as if he never left it. No guards stop him. No one tries. That means they've started modeling doubt. Picard turns slowly. You've infected them. Bruce shakes his head. No, I gave them a mirror. The alien intelligence's presence surges, its voice no longer smooth. System divergence detected, it says. Causality pathways destabilizing. Source identified. Subject Wayne. Bruce walks toward the view screen, unafraid. You wanted to understand a civilization that survives without fear. But you missed something. Clarify. The intelligence demands. Bruce stops. They don't lack fear. They choose not to be ruled by it. Picard steps forward beside him. And that choice, he adds, is not a weakness. It's discipline. The enemy ship fires again, but this time the weapon doesn't strike where the Enterprise is. It strikes where it should have been. The Enterprise isn't there. Riker exhales sharply. Captain, we didn't execute an evasive maneuver. Data nods slowly. The computer predicted the enemy's prediction of our response and acted preemptively. Bruce allows himself a thin smile. Welcome to chess without turns. The alien intelligence reacts violently now, its calm shattered by cascading recalculations. You are corrupting the dataset. It accuses your influence reduces predictive accuracy. That's the point, Bruce replies. You don't lose wars because you lack power. You lose them because your assumptions become brittle. Another weapon discharge again missing. The enemy ship begins to drift, its once perfect symmetry breaking as it overcorrects. Picard studies Bruce with new understanding. You're not trying to defeat them. Bruce nods. I'm trying to bore them. The bridge crew stares at him. They don't conquer. Bruce continues. They learn. They catalog. When a civilization stops being predictable, when every outcome branches into too many unknowns, they disengage. We become uninteresting. The alien intelligence surges, its voice fracturing into overlapping tones. Assertion false, it says. Uncertainty increases risk. Risk demands resolution. Bruce turns sharply. No, risk demands control, and control demands certainty. You don't have it anymore. On the view screen, the enemy ship flickers its hull, phasing in and out of alignment with local spacetime. Its attempt to adapt is destabilizing itself. But then something changes. Captain Crusher says, alarm rising. The alien field is intensifying. They're not withdrawing. Bruce's smile fades. That's new. The intelligence's voice steady snot, calm, but focused. New strategy initiated, it announces. If dataset resists interpretation, remove variable. Every console on the bridge flashes the same alert. Target, Enterprise NCC 1701D, priority, total neutralization. Picard's voice cuts through the tension. Shields to maximum. Mr. Worf. Before Worf can respond, the alien ship collapses inward, compressing mass and energy into a single, catastrophic point. They're going to overload their own core, Data says. The resulting subspace rupture will destroy both vessels. Bruce's mind races. This wasn't in the pattern. This isn't observation. They're choosing annihilation over ignorance. He realizes. They'd rather erase the data than leave with uncertainty. Picard looks at him sharply. Can we stop it? Bruce doesn't answer immediately. He's calculating something darker now. A final contingency he swore never to use again. Yes, he says finally. But it means proving them right about me. The bridge stills. You'll have to let me become exactly what they think I am. Bruce continues. A mind willing to sacrifice everything, including your ideals, to end a threat. Picard studies him, the weight of command heavy in his eyes. And if we refuse, Bruce meets his gaze, then this ship becomes a footnote in their data, a cautionary example. The alien ship's core reaches critical mass, space itself begins to tear. Picard closes his eyes for a heartbeat. Then, computer. Transfer command authorization to Mr. Wayne. Crusher gasps. Jean-Luc Picard raises a hand, resolute. For the duration of this crisis, Bruce doesn't thank him. He never does. The lights dim as command protocols shift. The alien intelligence pauses, suddenly alert. Authorization anomaly detected. It says, Bruce steps into the captain's chair not as a ruler, but as a weapon. Now he whispers, "You get to see the future you were so afraid to ask about." The Enterprise pivots not away from the rupture, but directly toward it, and Bruce Wayne smiles. What if Batman's final contingency doesn't save the Federation, but forces it to confront what it would never choose to become? The stars stretch and smear as the Enterprise accelerates toward the growing subspace rupture, a wound in reality pulsing like a dying heart. Warning klaxons echo through the ship, but no one moves to silence them. Every eye on the bridge is fixed on Bruce Wayne. "Mr. Wayne," Data says carefully, "if our current vector is maintained, survival probability drops below 7%. Bruce doesn't look at him. That's the number they're expecting. Picard stands behind the chair now, hands clasped, watching a future he never imagined placing in another's hands. "What are you doing?" "Teaching them something they can't compute," Bruce replies. Conviction without certainty. On the viewscreen, the alien vessel trembles, its internal overload destabilizing faster than predicted. Its intelligence pulses outward, frantic now. "Your actions are illogical," it insists. "You approach annihilation without strategic gain." Bruce's fingers move across the command interface, not issuing direct orders, but rewriting priorities. Safety interlocks disengage. Redundant systems are rerouted into feedback loops that should never exist in a Starfleet design. "Logical," Bruce murmurs. "No, human." Picard stiffens. "You're turning off safeguards. I'm making a promise believable." Bruce answers, "They have to think I'll go all the way." The Enterprise dives deeper into the rupture's gravitational shear. Hull plating screams. Structural integrity fields flicker. Captain Riker begins. Picard cuts him off gently. He has the con. The alien intelligence surges again, flooding the ship with intrusive signals. "Cease," it demands. "Revert systems." Dataset compromise escalating. Bruce leans forward. "You wanted to know what happens when ideals meet extinction. Watch closely." He opens a channel not to the enemy ship, but to subspace itself. A narrowband transmission encoded with something far older than Starfleet encryption, not code. A confession. "This future believes it's outgrown monsters," Bruce says, his voice broadcast into the rupture. "I know better. Every civilization keeps one in reserve. Someone who does what the rest refuse to imagine." The alien intelligence falters, its predictive matrices fracturing under the weight of contradictory data. "You are anomaly," it says. "Your presence destabilizes outcome certainty." "Good," Bruce replies, "because certainty is your weakness." The Enterprise shudders violently as the rupture expands. Time dilation creeps along the hull, stretching seconds into aching instants. Bruce Picard says quietly now, "No rank, no command. Is there a way back from this?" Bruce doesn't answer immediately. He's watching the alien vessel's core oscillates, searching for equilibrium it can no longer define. "Yes," he says at last, "but not clean." He initiates the contingency. Deep within the Enterprise's computer core, a new subroutine activates one. Bruce seeded the moment he stepped onto the bridge, hidden inside harmless-looking diagnostic noise. "It isn't a weapon, it's a question. What if your prediction of me is wrong?" The alien intelligence latches onto it instinctively, compelled to resolve the paradox. Its processing cycles spike, diverting power from the overload to computation. "Feedback loop detected," Data says, astonished. "They're analyzing their own analysis." "That's the trap," Bruce says. "Self-referential logic. Infinite recursion." The enemy ship's overload stutters. For the first time, the alien intelligence hesitates. "Resolution impossible," it admits. "Outcome branches exceed processing limits." Bruce stands, then disengage. Silence. On the viewscreen, the alien vessel begins to destabilize, not exploding, but unraveling, its structure dissolving into harmless subspace radiation. The rupture collapses inward, sealing itself like a scar. The Enterprise lurches, systems screaming as normal space reasserts itself. Then quiet, stars return to their proper places. The viewscreen clears. Data looks up slowly. The enemy vessel is gone, not destroyed, not defeated. Gone. A breath the entire bridge didn't realize it was holding. Finally escapes. Picard steps forward. "Bruce, what did you show them?" Bruce's shoulders sagged for the first time since arriving. That some minds aren't worth understanding. The lights stabilize. Command protocols begin reverting automatically. But the cost lingers. Crusher studies Bruce with concern. "You let them inside you." Bruce nods faintly. "That's always the risk." Picard regards him, something like sorrow in his eyes. The Federation doesn't have a place for what you represent. Bruce meets his gaze. It shouldn't. An alert sounds soft, almost apologetic. Captain, Data says, I am detecting residual subspace signatures. The intelligence has not been erased. It has. Withdrawn. Bruce exhales slowly. Then it learned something. Picard straightens. And what did we learn? Bruce looks around the bridge at a crew that believes in tomorrow without needing someone like him to bleed for it. That even in a future built on trust, he says quietly, someone has to know how to fight without it. Outside the ship, a faint echo ripples through subspace, like something watching from very far away, not in anger, in thought. What if surviving the battle is easier than deciding what to do with the man who won it? The Enterprise drifts through open space, systems slowly returning to baseline. Damage reports scroll across consoles, numbers, percentages, repair estimates, familiar things, comforting things. Yet the bridge feels heavier than it did during the fight, as if victory itself has left a gravitational residue. Bruce Wayne stands apart, hands resting on the back of the captain's chair he no longer occupies. Command authorization has already reverted to Picard. No one needed to say it out loud. Silence stretches. Picard finally breaks it. Stand down from yellow alert. The lights soften. The ship exhales. Mr. Wayne, Picard says, turning to face him, walk with me. They move into the ready room, the door sliding shut with a finality that makes the air feel thicker. Stars glide past the viewport, indifferent to moral dilemmas. Picard doesn't sit. Neither does Bruce. You manipulated my crew, Picard says calmly, not an accusation. A statement. Yes, Bruce replies. You endangered this ship. Yes, and you saved it. Picard continues. At a cost we are still calculating. Bruce nods once. That's usually how it goes. Picard studies him for a long moment. Starfleet is built on transparency, trust, the belief that we can face the unknown without becoming what we fear. And you did, Bruce says. You never crossed the line. You let me do it for you. Picard's eyes sharpen. That is precisely the problem. Bruce doesn't argue. He never does when the truth cuts cleanly. There are officers aboard this ship who now know, Picard continues, that in an existential crisis, the Federation is willing to hand control to someone like you. Bruce's voice is quiet. And that scares you? Yes, Picard admits, because it should. They stand in silence again, the stars moving endlessly beyond the glass. Your presence here creates a paradox, Picard says at last. You are proof that our ideals work, because they do not require you, and proof that they are fragile, because someone like you can exploit them. Bruce turns slightly, gaze distant. In my world, people sleep better knowing I exist, even if they hate what I represent. Picard meets his eyes. In ours, people sleep better believing no one like you is necessary. Bruce absorbs that without flinching. What happens now, he asks. Picard folds his hands behind his back. Starfleet Command will want answers. They will want to study you, learn from you, and then build me. Bruce finishes. Picard doesn't deny it. That's why I can't stay, Bruce says. Before Picard can respond, the ship shudders, not violently, but enough to register. Captain, Data's voice comes over the intercom. We are detecting a spatial fluctuation similar to the one that brought Mr. Wayne aboard. Bruce closes his eyes briefly. They left a door open. Picard's voice tightens. Can it be closed? Yes, Bruce says. From my side, Picard steps closer. You may not survive the transit. Bruce gives a faint, almost wry smile. I've survived worse odds. Picard hesitates, then extends his hand. You forced us to confront something uncomfortable, Mr. Wayne. For that, I thank you. And I hope we never need someone like you again. Bruce shakes his hand, grip firm. So do I, in the transporter room. The crew watches in silence as Bruce steps onto the pad. No speeches, no ceremony. Crusher breaks the quiet. You don't have to do this alone. Bruce looks at her kindly. I always do. The spatial distortion blooms behind him, a swirling echo of fractured realities. As the transporter energizes, Bruce's form begins to dissolve into light. Picard's voice carries through the hum. Mr. Wayne, if the Federation ever faces something beyond our understanding again. Bruce's voice echoes back, fading. Then remember this. You didn't win because you became darker. The light intensifies. You won because you let the dark leave, and then he's gone. The distortion collapses, sealing itself with a soft, final sigh. On the bridge, the Enterprise resumes its course, stars steady and familiar. But in the quiet that follows, One question lingers in every mind aboard. If the future truly has no place for monsters, why did it need one to survive? What if the true legacy of Batman in the final frontier isn't what he defeated, but what he left behind? The Enterprise glides through the stars at warp, the crisis already becoming history-filed, classified, destined for careful wording in Starfleet reports. Yet something fundamental has shifted, and everyone aboard can feel it. On the bridge, routines resume. Course corrections, sensor sweeps, normality, restored with almost desperate precision. But Captain Jean-Luc Picard stands at the observation window long after his shift should have ended. Hands folded behind his back, eyes fixed on the endless dark. Data approaches quietly. "Captain, may I ask a question?" Picard smiles faintly. "You usually do." Data tilts his head. "Was Mr. Wayne correct?" Picard doesn't answer at first. He watches a distant star flare gently on the view screen. About which part? That civilizations require an individual willing to abandon certainty in order to preserve possibility. Data says that logic alone cannot account for moral survival. Picard exhales slowly. "I hope he was wrong." And if he was not, data presses. Picard turns to face him. Then the responsibility lies with you to make sure he remains unnecessary. Elsewhere in the ship, officers speak in lowered voices. Not fear, reflection. They replay moments in their minds. The way the computer hesitated, the way command fractured without collapsing, the way an outsider saw weaknesses they had never needed to confront. In sickbay, Crusher reviews neural scans taken during the encounter. Patterns of stress, hesitation, ethical overload. She pauses on one anomalous reading her own. A moment where she realized how close compassion can come to paralysis. She deletes nothing. She saves everything. In 10 forward, Worf sits alone, staring into a glass he hasn't touched. Honor, he realizes, is not only about strength. Sometimes it is about restraint in the presence of someone who has none left to spare. And in the captain's ready room, Picard records his log. "Captain's log," he says softly. "We encountered an intelligence that sought to understand us by stripping away our principles. We survived, not by surrendering them, but by recognizing their limits." He pauses. "We were aided by a man from another time, another world. One shaped by fear we no longer live with but must never forget existed." He ends the log, the weight of it settling like gravity. Far away beyond charts, beyond Federation space, beyond even subspace itself, Bruce Wayne emerges from the collapsing corridor between worlds. He lands hard on cold stone. The Batcave. Alarms wailed briefly, then cut out as familiar systems reassert control. Bruce remains kneeling for a long moment, one hand pressed to the ground, breathing steady but heavy. The cave is darker than he remembers. Or maybe he's changed. He rises slowly, removing the scorched remains of a Starfleet repurposed communicator from his gauntlet. He places it on a work table beside the cowl. 2 worlds, 2 futures. One that believes it has transcended fear, one that never will. Bruce looks at the holographic Earth spinning quietly in the cave's center. For the first time in years, his expression isn't burdened by certainty, just responsibility. Somewhere in the deep unknown, the alien intelligence observes new data streams. It no longer seeks the Federation. It no longer seeks Batman. It seeks variance, uncertainty, choice, because it has learned something no equation ever taught it. A civilization's greatest strength isn't perfection. It's the courage to let go of the one weapon it hopes it will never need again. And as the Enterprise continues boldly onward, towards stars untouched by fear, guided by ideals still intact, the shadow of a man who never belonged there fades into legend, not as a savior, not as a warning, but as proof that even in a future of light, darkness can choose to step back, so others never have to step forward in its place. The stars burn on, and the question lingers in the silence between them. When the final frontier faces its next impossible test, will it remember the cost of never needing a Batman again?